At the age of 79, after nearly 6 decades in front of the camera, Sally Field has stepped away from Hollywood. From the outside, her farewell seemed quiet and graceful. But those who know her best could sense that behind that silence lay something far heavier. For years, she carried secrets the cameras never captured, pain buried beneath awards and applause, and a story that only began to emerge in the final chapters of her life. Why did she wait so long to speak about the things she had kept hidden since childhood? And what really happened inside that house in Pasadena that would go on to shape every role she ever played? The truth runs far deeper than fans ever realized. From the outside, Sally Field's childhood seemed perfectly ordinary. There were family photographs, school years, California addresses, and all the familiar details that make up a stable life. Yet beneath that appearance, something far darker was slowly taking shape, something that would haunt her for years. The pain did not arrive suddenly. It seeped into her life from a very early age, becoming part of the atmosphere around her and quietly shaping the person she would later become. Her full name is Sally Margaret Field, and she was born on November 6, 1946, in Pasadena, California, close to Los Angeles and also close to the world that would later shape her life, though she had no way of knowing it at the time. Her mother, Margaret Field, was a film and television actress when she could find work. Her father, Richard Dryden Field, was a pharmacist and a former captain in the United States Army who had served during World War II. For a brief period, her family remained intact. But in 1950, when Sally was only 4 years old, her parents divorced. The separation happened just as her earliest memories were beginning to form. As a result, from her very first years, family became associated with change and instability. 2 years later, on January 21, 1952, her mother went to Tijuana, Mexico, and married actor and stuntman Jock Mahoney. That marriage changed the family once again and brought a new dimension into Sally's world. At first glance, the new life even seemed exciting. Mahoney was tall, handsome, and had become famous in Hollywood for playing Tarzan. Producers, actors, stunt performers, and other people from the entertainment industry regularly came and went from the house. So long before Sally entered show business herself, she had already grown up inside that insular world. However, the glamour on the outside could not soften what life inside the house truly felt like. Years later, in interviews and in her memoir, she described Mahoney as a man who terrorized her. He enjoyed humiliating others. At times, he could be charming, but at other times, he could be terrifying. She remembered one occasion when he flew into a rage and threw her across the yard. That memory became deeply etched in her mind because it taught her a lesson she would carry for years. Home was not a safe place. Danger did not exist only in isolated moments. It was present in the very atmosphere of the house. The mere sound of his footsteps was enough to frighten her. As Sally grew older, school became far more important than just a normal part of childhood. School became a place where she could feel at ease. She attended Portola Middle School and later Birmingham High School in Van Nuys, graduating in 1964. On paper, those were simply ordinary school years. In reality, they gave her a space where she could exist. The campus looked like a typical American high school in the mid-1960s, with sweaters, flats, and all the familiar social rituals of teenage life. Sally immersed herself in that world in ways that made people smile. She took drama classes and performed in school plays. She made people laugh. Her classmates voted her the class clown. The nickname sounded light-hearted and harmless, and perhaps on some days, that was exactly what it was. But beneath it lay something more. Humor was a way for her to protect herself. Acting helped her temporarily forget the fear waiting for her at home. Every role she performed after school allowed her to stay away a little longer, and every laugh she received taught her just how useful pretending could be. For a very long time, much of what happened inside that house remained hidden. Then, Decades later, Sally Field put those long-buried experiences into words in her 2018 memoir, In Pieces. When the book was released on September 18, 2018, the timeline and painful memories she had silently endured for most of her life were also revealed. She wrote that Mahoney had sexually abused her throughout her childhood, until she was about 14 years old. He would often call her into his bedroom, while everyone else in the house went about their normal activities. That was also part of what made the abuse so devastating. It happened quietly, manipulatively, and beneath the cover of an ordinary family life. On the outside, it left almost no visible signs. But on the inside, it damaged her sense of safety, autonomy, affection, and even her perception of herself. Years later, she said that for much of her life, she had lived with the lingering question of whether her mother had ever suspected what was happening. Even asking that question took decades. By then, Mahoney had died in 1989. The effects of that period did not disappear when her childhood ended. In her late teens, Sally struggled with severe depression, sudden outbursts of anger, and binge eating. At the time, she still did not fully understand where any of it came from. The connection only became clearer much later, after therapy and the long, emotional process of writing her memoir. Ultimately, acting helped her in ways she herself had never expected. In the early 1970s, when she studied at the Actors Studio with Lee Strasberg, those classes gave her more than just acting techniques. They also created a space where the impulses and anxieties she had carried since adolescence could be released in a form she could use. Even so, old patterns continued to have a profound influence on her. She later connected aspects of her relationship with Burt Reynolds to emotional patterns that had formed during her childhood. Even after she became an Oscar-winning actress, the timid little girl who had once constantly listened for footsteps in the hallway never completely disappeared. She simply learned how to keep moving forward, find the light, and deliver her lines. That inner light partly explains why Sally Field's early television fame came with so much tension. In 1965, when she was just 19 years old, she attended an open casting call for Columbia Pictures and won the lead role in Gidget, ABC's teenage surfing comedy. For someone as young as she was at the time, it was a life-changing breakthrough. The show aired from September 15, 1965 to April 21, 1966. Although it lasted only one season before being canceled because of low ratings, the story did not end there. Summer reruns unexpectedly turned Gidget into a phenomenon. Teenage viewers began discovering the show after it had already ended. And suddenly, Sally Field became a familiar face on television. Her role as Frances Gidget Lawrence was particularly memorable. She was radiant, energetic, and almost impossible to ignore. So even though the series had ended, her image was already beginning to imprint itself on the public consciousness. That image quickly followed her everywhere. Hollywood now knew exactly how to position Sally Field, and that became a problem. She was seen as cute, cheerful, and well-suited to light-hearted comedy. Throughout 1966 and 1967, she appeared in several other television projects and took on guest roles, often playing lively girl-next-door types. Years later, in 1973 and 1974, she starred in The Girl with Something Extra. Another sitcom continued to keep her in the spotlight, but at the same time pushed her even deeper into that familiar mold. The roles gave her work. Work mattered. Yet every appearance only made that label more firmly attached to her. People in the industry looked at her, but did not see depth. They saw only harmless energy, sweetness, and charm. That was the box she would spend years trying to escape. Then came the role that made her famous across America, while trapping her even more tightly inside that box. In September 1967, ABC premiered The Flying Nun, starring Sally Field as Sister Bertrill, a petite young nun whose oversized winged headpiece could catch the wind and lift her into the air. The premise was whimsical, playful, and difficult to take seriously. The series ran for 3 seasons and 82 episodes from 1967 to 1970, making her a nationwide star. But it also turned her into a joke she never wanted to be trapped in. She later admitted that she hated her time working on the show. Putting on the costume, being suspended from cables, swinging on wires, and performing scenes centered around a flying nun made her feel humiliated. At the time, she wanted to do serious work. She longed for something that truly meant something. Instead, the role made her even more famous for exactly the kind of acting she desperately wanted to leave behind. When The Flying Nun ended in 1970, Sally was only 23 years old. Yet she already felt as though she had been shut out of the future she wanted for herself. Casting directors believed they already knew what she was capable of. Because of that, many of them were no longer willing to give her a chance to take on dramatic roles. Her image gradually became increasingly difficult to change. One agent even told her that she was neither pretty enough nor talented enough to take on more serious roles and advised her to keep doing sitcoms as the cute girl next door. For an ambitious actress, that comment was a devastating blow. She later described herself during that period as virtually unable to find work in the kind of projects she truly wanted. So she walked away from television comedy and made a choice that changed everything. She went to the Actors Studio in New York and began rebuilding herself from the inside out. That decision, around 1973, grew out of both frustration and longing. She was tired of being underestimated and knew she had far more potential than the industry was willing to acknowledge. Under Lee Strasberg's guidance in method acting, she spent about 2 years stripping away the habits television had instilled in her. She worked to abandon the cute mannerisms, exaggerated gestures, and simple rhythms of the sitcoms that had once kept her employed. Instead, she developed a deeper, more introspective style. She learned how to create a genuine inner life for her characters and express multiple layers of emotion beneath the dialogue. That training became the bridge between the smiling television star everyone thought they knew and the serious actress she was striving to become. The role that proved that transformation was Sybil. Filmed in 1975 and broadcast in 1976, the television movie gave Sally Field the kind of role she had always been searching for. She played Sybil Dorset, a graduate student who had suffered severe abuse during childhood, leading to the development of 16 personalities. The role demanded a level of emotional intensity she had never before been given the opportunity to display. She had to move through states of panic, confusion, terror, emotional collapse, and sudden shifts into entirely different personalities, sometimes all within the same day of filming. Her performance was powerful, technically accomplished, and extraordinarily controlled. Audiences who still remembered her as the girl from Gidget or the Flying Nun were now forced to see her differently. She delivered an outstanding performance, and the industry took notice. In 1977, she won the Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama or Comedy Special. That award marked the breakthrough she had worked so hard to achieve. Part of what made her performance in Sybil so remarkable was how little she relied on external devices. In some scenes, she shifted from one personality to another without changing costumes or using dramatic visual effects. A simple change in posture, a different voice, a new look in her eyes, and suddenly, another person seemed to emerge from the same body. That power came from skill rather than embellishment. The people who had once dismissed her abilities could now see her mastery, range, and capacity to convey profound emotion. Sybil became the turning point in Sally Field's career. Before it, she had primarily been a television phenomenon. After that role, she became a dramatic actress whom serious filmmakers could no longer ignore. That transformation opened an entirely new chapter. In 1977, she achieved major success on the big screen with Smokey and the Bandit. Released on May 27, 1977, with a budget of approximately $4.3 million. The film became a phenomenon, earning more than $126 million in the United States alone and finishing as the second highest grossing film of the year, behind only Star Wars. For Sally Field, that success meant many things. It proved that she could draw movie audiences and forced Hollywood to recognize her as a major star, rather than simply the television comedy actress she had once been. She was now for Sally Field. That success meant many things. It proved that she could draw movie audiences and forced Hollywood to recognize her as a major star, rather than simply. She later said that after only a few days, the two of them felt as though they had known each other for years. Their chemistry contributed to the film's success and turned them into one of Hollywood's most talked-about couples. They continued working together on several other projects, including Hooper in 1978, and in public, the two appeared glamorous, playful, and captivating. Magazine covers helped reinforce that image, and audiences were happy to believe in it. Years later, Sally revealed a harsher truth about the relationship. In her memoir, In Pieces, published less than 2 weeks after Reynolds died on September 6, 2018, she described the relationship as deeply complicated and painful. The public saw a love story, but what she experienced was far more difficult. She wrote that Reynolds' enormous fame gave him a certain kind of control over the people around him, including her. He could be unpredictable, distant, and obsessed with his own image. For Sally, that pulled her back into old emotional patterns that had been shaped by the trauma she had experienced. What looked romantic from the outside concealed anxiety, confusion, and pain within. Over time, the cost of that relationship became increasingly difficult to ignore. She said that Reynolds proposed to her several times, but she always turned him down because she did not believe he truly wanted to marry her. During their nearly 5-year, on-again, off-again relationship, she felt herself gradually fading under the weight of his expectations. She later said that she dressed, groomed herself, and even walked the way he wanted her to, as though part of her own identity was slowly being erased. Even when Reynolds later called her the love of his life, she did not return to that old story. She held firmly to the truth she had come to understand. Ending the relationship was necessary for her to move forward with her life. All of this was happening just as her career was rapidly taking off. That is also part of what makes Sally Field's story so compelling. The public saw fame, success, love, and status in the film industry. But behind that bright picture, she was still carrying the wounds of childhood, depression, and the emotional pressure of a relationship that had touched wounds she had never completely overcome. Even so, amid all that turmoil, she made some of the most powerful choices of her acting career. She pursued roles with greater depth and impact, and that path led her to Norma Rae in 1979, the role that earned her first Oscar. She later won a second Oscar for Places in the Heart in 1984. By then, the image of a star known only for fleeting fame had finally disappeared. What remained was a fuller truth. Sally Field had fought to escape being underestimated, and she succeeded while carrying far more than most people ever knew. Sally Field's first Oscar came from Norma Rae, released on March 19, 1979. In the film, she played a 33-year-old textile worker in North Carolina who gradually becomes a union organizer, a character inspired by real-life activist Crystal Lee Sutton. It was the kind of role that could change everything. The film had a budget of only $3.6 million but earned approximately $22 million at the U.S. box office, turning a gritty labor drama into an unexpected success. From there, Field's career quickly soared. She won Best Actress awards from the New York Film Critics Circle, the National Society of Film Critics, and at the 1979 Cannes Film Festival. Then, on April 14, 1980, she won the Academy Award for Best Actress at the 52nd Academy Awards. In the span of a single award season, the star of The Flying Nun had become someone entirely different in the eyes of the public. She was now a genuine screen actress with enormous influence. That transformation was not merely about her outward image. It also came from the way she gave everything she had on set. In one particularly intense scene in Norma Ray, when police officers dragged Norma toward a patrol car, Field fought back so fiercely that she broke the rib of an actor playing one of the officers. Filming had to be temporarily halted so the crew could adjust the action sequence and shooting plan. By that point, the production had already been extremely exhausting. Summer temperatures on the North Carolina set were reportedly above 100 degrees F, or about 38 degrees C. Field still insisted on performing most of the difficult scenes herself, rather than leaving them to a stunt double. The broken rib became one of those stories that the people who were on set never forgot. It showed just how completely the petite, 5'3" actress was willing to throw herself into the pain and panic of a woman being dragged away for standing up for her co-workers. 5 years later, she did it again. Her second Oscar came for Places in the Heart, released on September 21, 1984, in which she played Edna Spaulding, a widow living in Texas in 1935 who struggles to save her farm after her sheriff husband is murdered. When she won the Academy Award for Best Actress at the 57th Academy Awards on March 25, 1985, she delivered one of the most frequently quoted acceptance speeches in Oscar history. What she actually said was, "I can't deny the fact that you like me. Right now, you like me." To this day, many people still misremember the line, but the emotion behind it remains unmistakable. The moment was deeply moving because it carried years of self-doubt within it. Filming had also been extraordinarily demanding, with dust storm scenes and long days working in cotton fields. But the greater weight was emotional. The woman who had once been dismissed as a television actress was now standing before the entire industry as a two-time Oscar winner. And for the first time, she seemed to feel that people had truly accepted her. What made that period even more powerful was what she did between those two victories. She continued choosing strong, flawed, emotionally complex women. In Absence of Malice in 1981, she played a Miami reporter whose story destroys the life of an innocent man. In Murphy's Romance in 1985, she portrayed a divorced single mother living in a small Arizona town, starring alongside James Garner. Then, in Steel Magnolias in 1989, she delivered an unforgettable breakdown scene at the cemetery as Malin, a mother devastated by the death of her diabetic daughter. Roles like these could easily have fallen into simple melodrama, but Field never allowed them to become predictable. She brought sharp anger, dry humor, and moral uncertainty to them. As a result, by the end of the 1980s, she had become one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces for portraying complex women. Yet success on screen still could not erase what was happening behind it. Even while building that remarkable run of roles, she was still working in an industry capable of subjecting actresses to profound humiliation. In her 2018 memoir, In Pieces, she recounted an audition in the 1970s with director Bob Rafelson, an experience that haunted her for decades. According to Field, he told her that he could not hire anyone who was not a good kisser, then asked her to take off her shirt and kiss him to prove it. She complied, later got the role in Stay Hungry, and carried the shame of that experience long after the film was over. Years later, Rafelson denied her account and said the story was completely untrue. However, the broader truth within her story remains difficult to ignore. Powerful men often have the opportunity to deny, reshape, or erase such moments. Women are left carrying what happened inside them. By the 1990s, Field entered what seemed like a quieter chapter of her career. But it soon became another remarkable transformation. This time, she became a box office star. In 1993, she played Miranda Hillard in Mrs. Doubtfire, the composed but deeply stressed ex-wife opposite Robin Williams. The film grossed more than $400 million worldwide and became one of Fox's biggest family hits of the decade. Just 1 year later, she played Mrs. Gump in Forrest Gump, released on July 6, 1994. The film won 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and grossed more than $677 million worldwide. For 2 consecutive summers, Sally Field became the emotional center of 2 of the biggest box office hits of the 1990s. That makes the story involving Tom Hanks even more striking. In Punchline, released in October 1988, Field played Lila Krysek, a married New Jersey housewife pursuing her dream of becoming a stand-up comedian. Hanks played Stephen Gold, and there was flirtation, tension, and creative chemistry between them as 2 people who seemed almost like contemporaries. At the time, Field was 41 and Hanks was 32. Yet only 6 years later, those same 2 actors appeared in Forrest Gump as mother and son, even though in real life they were only about 10 years apart in age. The speed of that change says a great deal about how Hollywood treats women as they grow older. Field did not need to explain the system in a speech. The casting itself said everything. Even so, audiences stayed with her throughout that period, because she made those roles feel complete and authentic. The people who had once watched Gidget and the Flying Nun now saw her as the woman who was always trying to keep everything from falling apart. In Steel Magnolias, Malin is the one who holds herself together when tragedy strikes. In Mrs. Doubtfire, Miranda is the mother who carries the responsibility and maintains real order. In Forrest Gump, Mrs. Gump shapes her son's entire life with just a few brief but deeply meaningful lines. As roles like these became increasingly common, Field became an artist who transcended the familiar image of a conventional actress. By the end of the 1990s, she had become one of the defining maternal figures on the American screen. Strong, warm, authentic, and unforgettable. Awards organizations recognized it as well. Long before this period, she had already won 2 Academy Awards for Best Actress for Norma Rae and Places in the Heart. The nominations continued to come as she moved into ensemble films and supporting roles. The Golden Globes brought her 11 nominations and 2 wins, recognizing works such as Kiss Me Goodbye and Steel Magnolias, and later honoring her television work in A Woman of Independent Means and Brothers and Sisters. Even Forrest Gump, in which her screen time was fairly limited, helped maintain that momentum through recognition from BAFTA and SAG. In an industry that often loses interest in women after the age of 40, Field continued to receive serious recognition well into middle age. And behind that highly successful public image, she was still carrying private pain. While filming Mrs. Doubtfire, she later admitted that she never laughed at Robin Williams' constant improvisations, even when the entire crew was roaring with laughter. She remained focused on her work and said, "It drove him crazy." Then her father died during production, and as soon as Williams learned what had happened, he immediately stopped joking. He ended filming for the day, told the crew it was time to wrap, and personally saw her off the set in San Francisco. The story remains memorable because it contains 2 truths at once. Field was working on a blockbuster comedy for a major studio, but at the same time, she was grieving a profound loss. She maintained her standards, discipline, and privacy, even when everything around her became loud and overwhelming. Then, another turning point came. This time bringing her back to television in a way few people expected. In 2000, after decades of success in film, she joined the series ER as Maggie Wykensky, the mother of nurse Abby Lockhart, who has bipolar disorder. She appeared on the show from 2000 to 2006, and her performance never felt forced or like a mere guest appearance. Field portrayed manic and depressive states with heartbreaking detail, forcing critics who still held on to the gentle image of her from her earliest television shows to see her differently. In September 2001, she won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Guest Actress in a Drama Series. The victory mattered because it proved that she could step into modern television drama and completely command it. Her next television role took that success even further. In Brothers and Sisters, which aired from September 24, 2006 to May 8, 2011, She played Nora Walker, the matriarch of a large and chaotic family. The series ran for 109 episodes, and before production settled into place, the role had actually been given to Betty Buckley. The producers later changed direction and brought Field in after realizing that Nora needed to carry the emotional weight of the entire series. The decision paid off. In 2007, she won the Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series, the third Emmy of her career. In 2009, she also received the Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performance by a female actor in a drama series. Once again, she became a defining maternal figure for a new era, but this time on national television. Even in her 60s, she continued to push herself. In 2012, she took on the role of Mary Todd Lincoln in Steven Spielberg's Lincoln, opposite Daniel Day-Lewis. Spielberg initially thought she was too old for the character, but Field desperately wanted the role and fought to get it. She gained about 24 pounds, or roughly 11 kilograms, to match the documented measurements of Mary Todd Lincoln, and spent time studying biographies and archival materials in museums. The effort paid off. The role earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress, along with widespread praise for portraying Mary's instability, intelligence, grief, and pressure without softening any aspect of her character. During that same period, a younger generation of audiences came to know her as Aunt May in The Amazing Spider-Man in 2012 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 in 2014. Within a single decade, she moved from the Lincoln-era White House to a billion-dollar superhero franchise and remained completely convincing in both worlds. Then, in 2015, at around the age of 69, she starred in Hello, My Name is Doris as Doris Miller, a shy office worker from Staten Island who develops feelings for a much younger coworker. What made that performance stand out was its authenticity. The film allowed Doris to be awkward, lonely, yearning, socially anxious, and deeply caught up in her fantasies all at once. Field portrayed the character without ever begging the audience for sympathy. She allowed Doris to be messy and painful, challenging one of Hollywood's most persistent habits: its tendency to make women over 60 either invisible or harmless. Doris was nothing like that. She came across as a genuinely vibrant human being. Off-screen, Field also became increasingly outspoken about her past and the experiences that had shaped who she was. In Pieces, published on September 18, 2018, when she was 71 years old, she revealed that her stepfather, actor and stuntman Jock Mahoney, had sexually abused her from childhood into her early teenage years. She also wrote about secretly having an abortion in Tijuana when she was just 17, long before Gidget brought her fame, and recalled her audition with Bob Rafelson, an experience that left a profound mark on her. Her relationship with Burt Reynolds, which lasted from the late 1970s into the early 1980s, was described by her as turbulent, painful, and emotionally damaging. For many readers, the memoir changed the way they viewed her entire career. What had previously been seen simply as composure now seemed connected to survival. That shift in perception also influenced the way her performances were viewed. After In Pieces was published, many critics began revisiting her most emotionally intense roles from a different perspective. Her performance as Sybil in 1976 and 1977, in which she portrayed a woman traumatized by childhood abuse, seemed in retrospect so deeply personal as to be almost unbearable. Norma Ray also took on greater depth. That character's refusal to remain silent, refusal to make herself smaller, and refusal to surrender under pressure suddenly seemed connected to something more private and urgent within Field herself. The memoir did not diminish the value of those performances. On the contrary, it gave them greater depth. It suggested that for years, some of her greatest work had contained fragments of a struggle the audience had never truly known about. Around that same period, honors began coming to her in a different way. In 2015, Barack Obama presented her with the 2014 National Medal of Arts, praising the dignity, compassion, and courage she demonstrated both in her acting and her advocacy. In 2019, she became one of the Kennedy Center honorees, recognizing more than 50 years of unforgettable contributions. Then, on February 26, 2023, she received the Screen Actors Guild Life Achievement Award, becoming the 58th recipient of the honor. She was also elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, a rare distinction for an actor. These were not minor recognitions. They felt like the industry's way of finally acknowledging the full scope of her life and career.